Good morning, it's Torte de Lini. Real quick before I start, I want to show you guys a trick about Disruptor where you can consecutively get essentially infinite damage with Thunderstrike on any enemy who doesn't have Dispel or BKB with your Thunderstrike. All you need is to max out Thunderstrike, get your Thunderstrike Ag Shard, which increases the strikes by 6, and then get this plus 10 Thunderstrike damage per strike, which the description is accurate. It says every strike increases the damage of the subsequent strikes until the debuff expires. So what's going to be really cool is I'm going to be able to cast this on an enemy. In this case, it's a dummy. And that's going to do some pretty good damage. It's going to stop around 123.75, I think. And that's it because the Thunderstrike ends. However, I'm sure you noticed, if I cast Thunderstrike with the Ag Shard, the strikes will be long enough where my Thunderstrike will come off cooldown and I can cast it again on an enemy to essentially create infinite damage, right? 123.75, 130.125. So already you can see in your head how this can just keep going forever. And you don't even have to cast it from very close up, right? There's no risk. I can cast it from downtown at this point. And you know, the range is so good that it far exceeds my own vision. But as long as I have Thunderstrike on an enemy, no problem. Look at that. Oh, I might have screwed up there, but you kind of get the point, right? It's just infinitely more damage. Boom. 3,150, 3,386, 3,630. So I just wanted to show you that quick trick before I talk about the video of why Disruptor is pretty much one of the best support heroes to play in this meta. And it's not just because of this cool trick, although it is very cool. It's a little bit more than that. Alrighty, let's get into the real video here. I'm sure by now you guys have noticed Disruptor is probably one of the best supports to play in the game, and it kind of came suddenly. Well, the reason is pretty obvious, and it's all thanks to patch 7.35D. Previously, Disruptor didn't have a lot of presence during the laning stage, as we're seeing here. That's no longer true unless you were playing with a really aggressive core. That's really where Disruptor kind of shined previously. Now he just shines in general. You used to build Disruptor with 1 point Thunderstrike, and then you maxed out Glimpse, and then you maxed out Kinetic Field. There really wasn't any reason to max out Thunderstrike besides the small slow it dealt, and the damage was less prioritized over, let's say, Glimpse and Kinetic Field, which had a huge value in the mid game to late game in terms of catching enemies from afar and trapping them in that beautiful field. This is especially true when they made Glimpse deal damage depending on the distance the enemy was sent back from, and I think they did that change in 7.33, right? So at the time, Disruptor was not the greatest laner during a meta where laning was critical to win, and offlaners were especially aggressive, making Disruptor secondary to more popular supports like, you know, Io, Treant, Bane, Techies. These are heroes who help secure the lane for the carry and repel back setups by enemy offlaners, or at least mitigate their effectiveness. Disruptor kind of does that, but just not as effectively as some other heroes that we just named. However, in 7.35D, I think we can safely say that Disruptor is not only a fantastic laner, but is a truly aggressive player in the laning stage for a lot of safe lane / enemy off lane setups. So in 7.35D, Valve implemented one singular change for Disruptor that literally skyrocketed the hero into popularity. Basically, Thunderstrike now has a slow duration from 0.1 to now 0.4 at all skill levels, right? We can see that right there. Easy to read, right? This slow not just is, I mean, what you have to understand about Thunderstrike is that the slow is not just movement, but also attack speed, as well as it does a great job of kind of interrupting enemies at all stages of the game. And it's pretty incredibly annoying since it has such a short cooldown at max level. It says 9 seconds if you look at the max level for Thunderstrike, but it's actually more like, it's more like 3-4 seconds, because what you have to understand is that, you know, you're casting Thunderstrike, and then if you cast it again, you have to wait for the first one to kind of finish. And so, you know, the in-between period between two consecutive Thunderstrikes is about 3 to 4 seconds. And if you get the shard, we kind of talked about it, you can actually keep it on an enemy permanently at that point. What's really great about the shard is that you can also place it on the ground, which is great for defending, slowing pushes, or even for sieging high ground. So the improvement of Thunderstrike, even at level 1, means that it helps massively with trading and gives leverage against enemies who try to fight back. Then they get slowed, their attack speed gets slowed, or they flee. which also slows their movement speed. With the right core, like, Morphling, or, we saw previously here with Razor, and with levels in Glimpse, you can have a hero that plays great from afar, can slow enemies who try to flee, great against enemies who try to auto attack and fight. And then if they do manage to flee, then you get some distance. You can displace them back with Glimpse. So really, it's a hero that can do a lot from afar at a relatively safe distance with no real thoughts about what you're positioning, because really everything plays from super far away except for your ultimate and kinetic field. So half your abilities. Anyway, honestly, what makes Disruptor so good on top of all that is that he's just very strong against a lot of popular kind of movement, a lot of popular heroes that have dispels, maneuverability, difficult to catch. We could see in this matchup, great against Pangolier. I think other heroes that you can probably think about are like Puck or Faces Void, Troll Warlord, right? Troll Warlord's a popular one as well, or Doom. It's not just about heroes who can kind of get out of fights, with, let's say, Yules or, Time Walk or whatever. It's also for heroes that like to charge, like Centaur Warrunner is a perfect example. Or being able to kind of pull those enemies back after they jump in is pretty deflating for the enemy team, and it kind of screws up the positioning and engagement, right? Centaur Warrunner being in the front, now is in the back. It's after using his Stampede, it's a little discomforting for a lot of teams and players. So overall, really great hero against a lot of popular heroes, such as the ones I named, as well, being great for heroes that just have a lot of kind of output, but end up getting slowed, or more importantly, get trapped so easily by your Static Storm and Kinetic Field. In terms of Thunderstrike, it scales very well. We talked about it. Your level 10 talent, which you should have at, your level 10 talent, or you get it at 11 rather, because you max out Thunderstrike. That plus 10 Thunderstrike damage per strike is obviously very rewarding. You max out Thunderstrike by level 10 anyway, so it's also just incredible damage. You combine that with the Shard, which we talked about, and you're doing somewhere between 630 damage with a spell that has 1600 range. That's 200 less than Glimpse. We talked about that. So really, it's a hero that can play from ultra far away and not really have to think about the positioning or putting yourself at risk. The way people kind of solve the difference in distance or cast range between, let's say, your Kinetic Field and your Static Storm versus your Thunderstrike and your Glimpse — that was a fantastic Glimpse, by the way — is items like a Blink Dagger. It's a little bit like AA, right? AA has kind of two sides of the coin here, right? Cold Feet and whatever the other ability is called, I don't remember. And then you have your ultimate, which plays from very far away, and it can be a little disjointing for someone who's just not used to playing from two different distances. But overall, you have a Force Staff, you have, let's say, a Blink Dagger to kind of help manage or mitigate that difference in distance. So essentially that's why we're seeing a lot of pros like, here Kadaro's great. Players that buy Blink Dagger so they can spam Thunderstrike, Glimpse, and then blink in when it's key for them to plop down their Static Storm and Kinetic Field on an enemy they want to entrap and punish. So in terms of playing him, Disruptor, the secret to Disruptor is vision. Your glimpse range is usually larger than your vision, so especially at night. So really focusing on securing vision so you can have full control of your opponents no matter how far they go and how team fights develop. That was a beautiful Static Storm, by the way. Disruptor still plays pretty much the same as before, except we maxed Thunderstrike second instead of Kinetic Field, and we push for items like Blink Dagger, which you saw with Disruptor here. Blinked in perfectly, nailed 3 beautiful heroes, kind of entrapped them, unfortunately, or fortunately for him, inside his fantastic ultimate. Ag Shard Acceptor, which prevents kind of enemies from using their items, like Black King Bar, which pretty much counters Disruptor, right? We talked about how debuff immunity and dispels pretty much take off your Thunderstrike. They prevent you from entrapping enemies in Kinetic Field, and then with the BKB, obviously makes you pretty invulnerable towards, almost invulnerable, evidently, from Static Storm's effects. Evidently the silence doesn't work, but the damage still goes through about 50%. Other items you can also consider are, items like Glimmer Cape, Force Staff to help your team since you're playing from far from enemies, but relatively close to your team in comparison. So you can cast those items to support them when they need it. And that's pretty much it, right? Trade hard in the lane, gank a lot in the mid game with your glimpse, and play patiently in the late game while spamming Q while you wait for your opportune moment. Really, the hero is just about playing far, not overextending, and not forcing anything that you yourself would not consider great. So, simply put, one small change can make the world of difference for a hero's popularity. We saw this with Leshrac and his bump in Diabolic Edict's damage, and now we're seeing it here with Disruptor. That's pretty cool. I love how the meta kind of shifts and changes with just really small changes you really didn't take seriously until you see better players do it. That's pretty much it for me. Thanks, and have a good morning.